After the Spanish-American War, the United States wasn't officially allowed to control Cuba because of something called the Teller Amendment to the Declaration of War. However, the United States is going to become an imperialist power within the Latin American territories, and Cuba was part of this. We had put something in called the Platt Amendments to the Cuban Constitution, essentially saying that the United States could intervene in Cuba anytime its independence was threatened. We also got a little place called Guantanamo Bay. You may have heard it in the news recently, referred to as Gitmo, a place where we've been keeping accused terrorists. This is part of a bigger program of Teddy Roosevelt known as the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Remember that the Monroe Doctrine said that the Europeans should stay out of the Latin American territories. Roosevelt adds to this. Yes, we wanted to keep the Europeans out. Roosevelt saw himself as, he calls himself the policeman of the hemisphere, keeping the Europeans out and the good Western Hemisphere people in. The Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine essentially made us the debt collectors. The European countries were owed a lot of money by Latin American countries. We didn't want the Europeans coming into our hemisphere trying to collect that money. So the United States would go into these little countries, collect the money, and then send it back to the Europeans, basically making us a debt collector. This led to a lot of resentment among the Latin American countries. This is helped by Teddy Roosevelt's program known as the Big Stick Policy. Teddy Roosevelt was a man of action. He said, speak softly and carry a big stick. So Teddy Roosevelt would warn these countries, Europeans, Latin Americans, whatever, and if they didn't do what he wanted, he would essentially use the military against them. We'll see this more in the next on-demand session about the Panama Canal. However, it's important to note that the Great White Fleet was his big stick, and he liked to threaten people with it quite often.